It's been 4 days of rest, and we're feeling good enough to be back on the sprawling, rugged highways of western Utah and into Nevada. The next stop is the out-of-context and snow-peaked South Snake Mountain Range and Great Basin National Park. We're all rested today and ready to hit the road again. We had one last amazing breakfast at my friend's place, bid everyone goodbye, and left the Salt Lake City area westward. We ultimately decided not to return to southern Utah at all. The parks we missed there will have to be some other trip. It was good to be watching the miles zip by again. And here, a lot of those miles are salty. You see great patches of white on the sides of the road, and soon you're at Great Salt Lake. This huge body of water is quite unique. It's known as America's Dead Sea, with a level of salt much higher than the ocean. It's the largest saltwater lake in the Western Hemisphere. Some small sections of the lake actually do have fish, but mostly it can only support things like brine shrimp and algae and birds. People were out in sailboats and paddleboards on this day. Life by the shore seems relaxing. I became fascinated by these, brine flies. There are an estimated 100 billion of them here. And there's also this, the gull from Burger King a few days ago. Well, maybe it's not the same one, I don't know. But this lake explains why shorebirds are hanging around this mostly arid desert land. At the visitor center, we bought a pin and learned that Great Salt Lake is in a huge basin, out of which water doesn't flow. That's why it's so salty. Minerals are carried here from streams and the water evaporates, leaving the saline minerals behind. Cool. Plus they gave us free cups for the car. What's not to love about Great Salt Lake? In the town of Stockton down the road, we stopped to mail postcards to ourselves. Stockton was the first place in Utah Territory to get electric lights and a telephone. I really liked the vibe of the place. Well, most of it. It just seemed like another small town with a very individual character. In fact, everything on this drive was pretty cool. Strange and unexpected vehicles, dusty little Old West looking shops, free-ranging animals in the road, and enough room for large-scale unencumbered infrastructure. At one point, Utah gave us another well-timed picnic spot, out here in the middle of nowhere. An especially nice one, covered table and even a restroom. Blood sugar was 144. The roads here are long and lonely. One of the only ways across the Great Basin in the old days was by train, and they still pass through. And in some places you get the sense that trains still have a lot to say about the pace of life here, in towns established as rail stops in the era of the Great American Railroads. More insight into the realities of natural life here comes when you see this, another salt lake. This is Sevier Lake and is usually dry, like today. Both this and Great Salt Lake were once part of a much bigger body of water we now call Lake Bonneville from 30,000 years ago. It rose as land was pushed up, and when it got high enough, in less than a year the water flooded away. Sevier Lake and Great Salt Lake are its remnants today. As the road straightened out even more and, bizarrely, snowy mountains loomed ahead, the last thing that happened in Utah for us was that the trip hit 11,000 miles. Remember, this is plus 10,000. And rest assured that somewhere on a dusty little spot on the highway, there's a tiny bit of civilization that marks the Nevada border, our 20th state. Immediately, Nevada makes its personality unmistakable. In the little building across from the welcome sign, we found out that Highway 50 is nicknamed the loneliest road in America. Inside, a rogues gallery of friendly and tough-looking local luminaries lines the walls. And of course, what would a remote border stop on a dry, dusty afternoon in Nevada be without the muffled lights and sounds of a miniature casino? Not being gamblers, we pressed on, but not far. Our motel is just inside the border, in a minute town called Baker. The population here is 68, which means that our arrival raised the population about 3%. Our inn was perfectly Nevada, small and functional, but cozy and quirky. Even the laundry in a tin shack just down the road was pure Nevada. Next door to the motel was a place called Kerouac's, with tasty veggie burgers and something called Great Basin Icky IPA. And speaking of Great Basin, and to explain why our room was at something called Stargazer Inn, after dinner we drove into the place we came to see, Great Basin National Park. The reason this became a national park in 1986 is that it's a high forested mountain range in the middle of endless desert scrub brush. We're going to see that part of Great Basin tomorrow in the daytime, but tonight we're headed to an astronomy lecture in the parking lot of the visitor center given by a ranger. The theme of the talk was the clock we live on, and it covered things like the Earth's rotation and its movements in the solar system. The Dark Ranger, Steve Moore, did a great job, and obviously loved the topic. At the end, he asked for questions, and I asked one. If the moon is right there, tonight at 9 p.m., when and where will it be rising tomorrow? He said that it would be a bit to the north and show up maybe 50 to 60 minutes later each night. Something to remember from my moon photography. Skies are very dark at Great Basin, and a lot of stars were out. We looked through Ranger Moore's telescope at the moon, Jupiter, and a double star. Thus amazed and informed, we drove back through the warm Nevada darkness to quiet Stargazer Inn, and our appetite for learning more about Great Basin has been whetted. Tomorrow we do explore more of the forested slopes of Great Basin National Park, and then take off down the loneliest road in America, through Nevada's starkly spectacular scenery. Our supposedly haunted hotel is in a real old silver mining town called Tonopah.